Good evening, and welcome to this urgent special report on the escalating crisis in the Middle East, where tensions between Iran, the United States, Israel, and now rippling across the globe have ignited what could become the most dangerous geopolitical flashpoint of our time. I'm your anchor, reporting live from our crisis center, and right now the world is holding its breath as President Trump vows to hit Iran very hard this weekend, signaling strikes in entirely new areas that could shatter any remnants of restraint. Explosions rock Tehran as we speak. Teams on the ground report massive blasts lighting up the sky, flames engulfing an oil storage facility in the southern part of the city. This isn't just another skirmish. This is a full-throttle war that's already claimed over 1,000 civilian lives in Iran alone, crippled global oil supplies, and sent shockwaves through financial markets from Wall Street to Tokyo. Stay with us as we dive into the heart of this unfolding catastrophe, because every second counts, and the stakes have never been higher. Picture this. Just moments ago, at 2:50 p.m. Eastern Time, President Trump, standing solemnly at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware for the dignified transfer of 6 American service members killed in an Iranian drone strike in Kuwait, didn't mince words. He declared that Iran would face devastating blows this very weekend, expanding the theater of operations beyond what's already been a brutal 12-day onslaught. Tehran, defiant and battered, has its president issuing a rare apology to neighboring Gulf states for errant strikes, but in the same breath, vowing unrelenting retaliation against U.S. targets scattered across the region. This apology comes amid fresh explosions in Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE, where Iranian projectiles have pierced the skies, igniting fires and forcing evacuations in bustling cities like Dubai's Marina district. Imagine high-rises trembling, cell phone alerts blaring warnings of incoming missiles, and families fleeing as debris rains down from intercepted warheads. The UAE's president, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, broke his usual reserve to brand Iran as the enemy, declaring his nation not easy prey. This is escalation in real time, folks. Nations that were once cautious allies now drawing lines in the sand, their skies lit by the glow of defensive missiles. But let's zoom in tighter. Our correspondents in Tehran are witnessing horror unfold. Just 17 minutes ago, a new wave of Israeli strikes hammered the Iranian capital, with explosions so powerful they shook camera lenses and sent plumes of smoke billowing into the afternoon haze. Residents, emerging from shelters, describe a city under siege. Shopkeepers sweeping shattered glass from storefronts, mothers clutching children as air raid sirens wail incessantly. One local told our team, "We fear for our lives every night, but life must go on." Yet, beneath this resilience lurks a deeper dread. Many Iranians whisper that their greatest terror isn't the bombs, but the survival of the current regime, which has crushed anti-government protests with iron fists in the past. And in Esfahan, a resident recounted horrible bombings at a nearby airfield, where air defenses seemed utterly absent, leaving the sky open to relentless aerial assaults. This crisis didn't erupt in a vacuum. It stems from a calculated U.S.-Israeli campaign that began nearly 2 weeks ago, targeting Iran's nuclear facilities, military installations, and command centers in a bid to dismantle what Washington calls an existential threat. But Iran's response has been ferocious, drones and missiles raining down on U.S. bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, and beyond, killing those 6 brave service members whose remains are being honored right now at Dover. The human toll is staggering. Human rights activist news agency reports at least 1,172 civilians killed in Iran from these strikes. Entire villages cut off from water after alleged U.S. attacks on a desalination plant on Qeshm Island. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi blasted the U.S. for this, claiming it deprived 30 villages of vital supplies. Meanwhile, Iran's near-total internet blackout, now stretching over a week, has forced citizens to cobble together makeshift networks just to reach loved ones or glimpse the outside world. Graphs from monitoring groups show connectivity plummeting to near zero, isolating a nation of 80 million in the digital dark ages. As we broadcast, the ripple effects are exploding outward. In the Gulf, despite Iran's presidential pledge to halt strikes on neighbors, blasts continue. Fars news agency boasts of massive explosions at U.S. bases in Bahrain, while Bahrain's Ministry of Interior confirms Iranian aggression sparked fires and structural damage in Manama. Qatar and the UAE report similar chaos. Projectiles intercepted over Abu Dhabi and Dubai, but not without collateral. A high-rise in Dubai's marina evacuated after shards from explosions pelted the building. No injuries there, but the fear is palpable. Cell phones buzz with urgent alerts. Incoming missiles, seek shelter immediately. This is the Middle East on the brink, where alliances fray and old grudges ignite anew. And let's not forget the domestic front here in the U.S. Americans like Tamira Monker in Atlanta are feeling the pinch at the pump, where gas prices have jolted upward, affecting everything from rideshare gigs to family budgets. This war is infiltrating everyday lives, turning global geopolitics into personal peril. President Trump, ever the dealmaker turned wartime leader, has bypassed Congress to greenlight an emergency sale of 12,000 BLU 110 AB 1,000-pound bomb bodies to Israel, over $151 million worth of firepower to sustain the offensive. He trumpeted this on Truth Social, framing it as a necessary bolstering of an ally under fire. But critics question the haste. Is this fueling a wider war or containing it? The urgency mounts with every update. Britain's HMS Prince of Wales aircraft carrier is now on heightened readiness, its deployment window slashed, though London insists it's not yet committed, a nod to NATO's broader deterrence against Russian opportunism amid this distraction. And in Iran, whispers of leadership upheaval. A senior cleric hints that the Assembly of Experts could select a new supreme leader within 24 hours, though no action has materialized, urging calm amid speculation. This internal tremor could either stabilize Tehran or fracture it further, unleashing unpredictable forces. As we push forward in this live coverage, the air thickens with tension. Evacuation flights orchestrated by the State Department are ferrying thousands of Americans out of harm's way from Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain, the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. Assistant Secretary Dylan Johnson confirms over a dozen such operations, urging citizens to use the crisis intake form or hotline for aid. But timing draws fire. Some say help came too late, leaving expats stranded in crossfire zones. This opening salvo of events paints a picture of a world teetering on the edge, where one miscalculated strike could drag in superpowers and redraw maps. We're not just reporting news, we're witnessing history's acceleration, a vortex pulling in economies, militaries, and millions of lives. Hold tight as we delve deeper into what just happened, because the fuse is lit, and it's burning faster than anyone anticipated. The sequence of events that propelled us to this precipice began with precision and fury nearly 2 weeks ago, when U.S. and Israeli forces launched coordinated strikes deep into Iranian territory, targeting nuclear enrichment sites, ballistic missile silos, and Revolutionary Guard headquarters. Intelligence briefings leaked to the press described these as preemptive measures against Iran's alleged preparations for a massive assault on Israel, fueled by proxy militias in Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen. But Iran, viewing this as an act of unprovoked aggression, unleashed a barrage of countermeasures that have since spiraled into a multi-front war. Fast forward to the past 24 hours, and the tempo has intensified dramatically. Early this morning, reports flooded in of Iranian missiles streaking toward U.S. installations in the Gulf. In Kuwait, a drone swarm overwhelmed defenses, striking a base and killing those 6 U.S. service members, heroes whose sacrifice Trump is honoring even as he plots retaliation. Eyewitness accounts from the scene describe chaos. Alarms blaring, troops scrambling to bunkers, and the acrid smell of burning fuel hanging heavy in the air. Iran's state media celebrated this as a decisive blow, but the human cost is incalculable. Families shattered, comrades lost. By midday, the counteroffensive escalated. Israeli jets, bolstered by that fresh U.S. bomb shipment, pounded Esfahan's airfield, reducing runways to craters and hangars to rubble. A local resident, speaking anonymously to CNN, painted a vivid scene. The ground shook like an earthquake. Bombs fell one after another, and our skies were empty of protection. It was horrible, children screaming, dust choking the streets. This lack of air defenses underscores Iran's vulnerabilities, exposed after years of sanctions that hampered military upgrades. Then came the Gulf flare-ups. Despite Iran's president extending an olive branch, an apology for unintended strikes on neighbors, the missiles kept coming. In Bahrain, Explosions ripped through Manama, igniting a residential fire and damaging buildings. The Ministry of Interior pointed fingers squarely at Tehran, labeling it outright aggression. Qatar reported similar incursions, with air defenses lighting up the night sky in Doha. And in the UAE, the heart of economic opulence, Dubai's marina turned into a war zone proxy. Projectiles intercepted mid-flight, but fragments cascaded onto a high-rise, forcing hundreds to evacuate under emergency lights. Abu Dhabi's warnings echoed across cell networks, urging residents to shelter in place as sirens wailed. Tehran's latest volley included claims of hitting oil facilities in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE, strategic choke points that funnel 20% of the world's oil through the Strait of Hormuz, now virtually sealed shut by naval skirmishes. Iranian naval forces have mined approaches, daring tankers to navigate, while U.S. carriers like the USS Abraham Lincoln patrol nearby, their decks buzzing with fighter jets ready to enforce no-fly zones. Amid this barrage, Iran's internal strife bubbles over. The internet blackout, imposed to stifle dissent, has backfired somewhat. Ingenious citizens rig satellite links and mesh networks to pierce the veil, sharing videos of bombed-out neighborhoods and pleas for international intervention. One Tehran resident confided to our team, "We huddle in basements during raids, but our real enemy is the silence. No news, no contact. Yet we find ways. Whispers become shouts online." This digital resilience contrasts with physical devastation. The Keshem Island desalination plant strike, as accused by Foreign Minister Arakchi, has left 30 villages parched, exacerbating humanitarian woes. Water trucks rumble through dust-choked roads, but supplies dwindle as strikes persist. On the U.S. side, Trump's administration moves with wartime speed. The bomb sale to Israel, announced via Truth Social, circumvents congressional oversight under emergency provisions, a move decried by Democrats as reckless, but praised by hawks as essential. Trump himself, en route to Dover, emphasized minimizing American casualties. "We'll keep our deaths to a minimum, but Iran will pay dearly." This rhetoric fuels the fire, with analysts warning it locks both sides into escalation ladders. Global echoes amplify the drama. Britain's carrier readiness signals potential NATO involvement, though framed as Russian deterrence. Evacuations ramp up. State Department flights lift off from regional airports, carrying weary Americans clutching passports and hastily packed bags. Johnson, the Assistant Secretary, urges, "If you're in danger, contact us now. Lines are open 24/7. And in Iran's clerical circles, the supreme leader vacuum looms. Ayatollah Mozaffari's comments about a possible successor within 24 hours stir intrigue. Could a hardliner or moderate emerge? The Assembly of Experts convenes in secrecy, their decisions potentially reshaping Tehran's strategy. These events aren't isolated. They're threads in a tapestry of accelerating conflict, where each strike begets another, pulling in more nations and heightening risks. The war's pulse quickens, demanding we confront why this powder keg is so perilously unstable. This conflict's dangers extend far beyond the immediate battlefields, threatening to engulf the region in a conflagration that could rival the world wars in scope and devastation. At its core, the volatility stems from asymmetrical warfare. Iran's missile arsenal, honed over decades, allows precision strikes on U.S. assets without full-scale invasion, while U.S.-Israeli air superiority decimates Iranian infrastructure from afar. But this imbalance invites desperation. Tehran, cornered, could activate sleeper cells or proxies like Hezbollah to open northern fronts against Israel, drawing in Lebanon and Syria. Nuclear shadows loom largest. Israel's undeclared arsenal and Iran's near-threshold capabilities mean any misstep could cross red lines. If strikes hit Fordo or Natanz enrichment sites again, Iran might accelerate uranium purification to weapons grade, prompting preemptive nuclear considerations, a nightmare scenario where fallout poisons the Persian Gulf for generations. Economically, the Strait of Hormuz closure chokes global energy arteries. With 20% of oil transit halted, supply shocks could trigger recessions worldwide. We've already seen U.S. gas prices spike, but imagine Europe, reliant on Middle Eastern LNG, facing blackouts or rationing. Cyber dimensions add peril. Iran's hackers could target U.S. grids or financial systems in retaliation, as seen in past Stuxnet echoes. Humanitarian crises amplify risks. Over 1,172 civilian deaths breed radicalization, swelling militant ranks. Refugee flows could overwhelm Jordan and Turkey, destabilizing allies. And with Iran's regime teetering, a power vacuum might invite ISIS resurgence or civil war, exporting chaos. Diplomatically, alliances fracture. UAE's enemy label signals Gulf states might join offensives, while Russia's arms to Iran and China's oil deals complicate UN interventions. Trump's escalation vows box in negotiations, making de-escalation elusive. This tinderbox, fueled by historical grievances, 1979 revolution, embassy siege, drone killings, demands vigilance. One errant missile could ignite it all, underscoring why this war's dangers are existential. The financial markets are reeling from this Middle East maelstrom, with shockwaves jolting equities, commodities, and currencies in a frenzy not seen since the 1973 oil embargo. Wall Street opened in chaos this morning, the Dow plummeting over 800 points in the first hour as traders dumped energy stocks amid fears of prolonged disruptions. Oil futures surged past $120 a barrel, a 15% leap in 24 hours, driven by the virtual shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz and Iranian strikes on Gulf oil infrastructure. Brent crude, the global benchmark, hit levels that rattle economies. Think supply chains grinding to a halt, airlines grounding flights due to fuel costs, and manufacturers idling plants. Gas prices at home have skyrocketed, averaging $3.41 per gallon nationwide, up 43 cents in a week, the sharpest climb since March 2022's Ukraine invasion. In swing states like Pennsylvania and Michigan, this bites hard, potentially swaying voter sentiments as midterms loom. Consumers like Atlanta's Tamira Monker feel the sting. Her rideshare earnings evaporate as fares rise, but demand dips. Broader inflation fears mount. The Fed, already hawkish, might hike rates aggressively, risking a hard landing. Gold, the safe haven darling, vaulted to $2,500 an ounce, while Bitcoin tumbled 10%, investors fleeing volatility for tangibles. Defense stocks boomed. Lockheed Martin up 8% on news of that $151 million bomb sale to Israel, betting on prolonged conflict. But broader indices suffer. NASDAQ shed 3%. Tech giants like Apple and Amazon dragged down by supply fears from disrupted shipping lanes. Globally, the pain spreads. Europe's DAX and FTSE cratered 4%, energy-dependent Germany facing factory shutdowns. Asia's Nikkei closed down 5%, Japanese refiners scrambling for alternatives. Emerging markets teeter. India's rupee weakened, import bills ballooning. Analysts warn of stagflation redux, growth stalls as prices soar. IMF projections slash global GDP by 1 to 2% if the war drags on. Insurers brace for claims on tankers, premiums skyrocketing. Trump's escalation rhetoric amplifies uncertainty, markets pricing in war premiums that could persist. Yet opportunities lurk. U.S. shale producers ramp up, potentially easing long-term pressures. But short-term, this market shock destabilizes pensions, 401ks, and global trade, a stark reminder of war's economic tentacles. As this crisis barrels forward, escalation paths multiply like fractures in glass, each crack threatening total shatter. The most immediate, Trump delivers on his vow, striking new Iranian targets, perhaps cyber hubs or naval bases, prompting Tehran to unleash its full missile inventory on U.S. carriers or Israeli cities. Hezbollah, Iran's Lebanese proxy, could then mobilize 150,000 rockets, overwhelming Iron Dome and forcing Israel into ground incursions, pulling in Syrian forces. A Gulf escalation looms. If UAE or Saudi Arabia retaliate directly against Iranian oil fields, the strait becomes a naval graveyard, halting oil flows indefinitely. Russia, arming Iran, might exploit distractions to advance in Ukraine, testing NATO resolve. Britain's carrier readiness hints at this shadow play. Nuclear brinkmanship. Iran, sensing regime collapse, could declare weaponization, inviting Israeli preemption. Or accidental hits on reactors release radiation, contaminating winds across Asia. Cyber warfare intensifies. U.S. grids black out from Iranian hacks. or vice versa, crippling communications and escalating to kinetic responses. Diplomatic failures compound. UN deadlocks, with China vetoing resolutions, isolate the West. Internal Iranian upheaval, a new hardline leader, might double down on aggression, or a collapse invites jihadist influx. Worst case, a misfired missile strikes a civilian airliner, echoing MH17, galvanizing coalitions against the perpetrator. Or proxy wars spread to Yemen, where Houthis target shipping anew. These scenarios accelerate hourly, demanding proactive diplomacy. But with Trump's hardline stance, the ladder climbs relentlessly upward. For everyday viewers like you, this war's tentacles reach into wallets, travel plans, and peace of mind. Gas at $3.41 means higher grocery bills as trucking costs inflate. Expect milk and bread up 5 to 10% soon. Families budgeting for vacations scrap trips to Europe or Asia amid flight disruptions and soaring fares. Expats in the Gulf endure sleepless nights, heeding evacuation calls. Thousands board State Department flights, leaving behind lives built over years. Back home, military families brace for deployments. The Dover ceremony a grim harbinger. Mental toll mounts. News overload spikes anxiety. Therapists report surges in war-related stress. Investors watch retirements erode as markets gyrate. Yet resilience shines. Communities rally for refugees. Charities fund aid. This impacts us all, urging informed action. Contact reps, support diplomacy. Strategically, this war reshapes global power dynamics, tilting balances toward multipolarity. U.S. dominance wanes as resources drain into the Middle East, emboldening China in the South China Sea. Beijing's silence masks glee at distracted rivals. Russia gains leverage, supplying Iran while probing Europe. Gulf states pivot. UAE's belligerence signals independence from U.S. umbrellas, forging new pacts. Israel solidifies as a regional powerhouse, but at isolation's cost. Arab normalization stalls. Iran, weakened, might fracture, birthing microstates or radical enclaves. Europe accelerates energy diversification, boosting renewables. Overall, this shift erodes unipolarity, fostering a volatile world order where alliances fluidly realign. In closing, this crisis hurtles toward unknowns, but knowledge arms us. Trump's escalations, Iranian defiance, market turmoil, all converge in a storm demanding resolve. Stay vigilant. The world changes by the minute. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel for real-time updates and in-depth analysis.